And we are live. Thank you all for joining us today. We are talking about how to redefine our coping mechanisms, right? How stepping into that new health identity, right? So, thanks so much for joining us on the Raw Food Health Empowerment Show. I'm your host, Samantha Salmon, and I'm here with an awesome guest, Shalita Dodson. Shalita is an athlete, mother, trainer, nutritionist, author, Navy veteran, and we just celebrated Veterans Day, so thank you so much for your service. And a pioneer who is passionate about helping others reclaim their health via a raw food focused, whole foods, plant based diet, physical activity, therapy, and full submission to Christ. Now, you don't usually even hear those two things together, therapy and submission to Christ. So that just shows the evolution that's happening in our communities right now, which is so awesome. She's on a mission to rob the graveyard of purpose-filled people by training and equipping them on their journey to wellness. She's the CEO of Eden Style Eaten, where nutrition is based on the blueprint of Genesis chapter 1, verse 29. And for those of you who have yet to brush up on your Bible verses, I will read Genesis 1:29 to you. It says, "And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat." Thank you so much, Shalita, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into like how the coping mechanisms we've developed early on in life can sometimes hold us back. And we'll talk about identifying those habits and reshaping them. But first, I want to understand from your perspective and your journey, like how did you even get into raw food eating?
It was a happy accident, I'll say. I've always enjoyed colorful food, salads, all of those things. My mother started off juicing with like that old school Jack LaLanne massive thing. And so she's always just putting stuff together. I'm like, you just throwing stuff together. There was no direction. It was just stuff. And so, and her favorite was beets. And I'm like, I'm not eating that. I'm like, that looks like blood. It tastes like outside. I'm not eating that. It's like, absolutely not. I love you, but no. And so I'm like, Mommy, add some apples in. I'm like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. But I was really unlearned in regards to just those who actually just eat vegetables. I'm like, you're gonna die. I had that classic omnivorous type of where to get your protein. It's what everyone asks. But I was one who would tease people about it. I'm like, you're gonna wither away, and this is ridiculous. And then a couple of my friends who are both African went vegan. I'm like, you're a vegan African? I was like, really? Is that even a thing? And they were like, you do know that actually in Africa we eat mainly vegetables. I was like, oh, you know what? Well, kind of egg on my face. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, let me let me change my perspective on this. But I had a lot of health conditions. So I was morbidly obese for over 20 years.
Wow.
I had suffered a mild heart attack in 2009 when I was 28 years old. And then a couple years later, I had endured a tumor on my pituitary gland. Then it was birth control induced hypertension. Then my thyroid went through the floor. Then I went in to get a regular pap smear, and they ended up testing me for uterine cancer because I had every single symptom. I'm like, can I not be the poster child of all, like for all, quote unquote,
Wow.
black diseases? I'm like, can we not? Something has to give. And so my daughter kind of made a joke. We should go vegetarian for like a week. I'm like, you're insane. I live in Texas. We're in Texas. You're out of your mind. And it was like right after I told her no, it was like the Lord's like you are for the whole month. I'm like, I'm gonna die. Oh my God. What do I do? I was terrified. I'm like, I'm in the gym. I got there's meat in my freezer. What do I do with it? He's like, you better give it away because you're not supposed to cook it. I'm like, no, what do I do? So I'm looking and researching, but everyone that I found was vegan. I'm like, I'm looking for vegetarian. But everyone that I found, even looking on YouTube, everyone was vegan. I'm like, I'm not going that route. But I said no. And here we are, 5.5 years later. And interestingly, right after I went vegan in June of 2019, around October, November time, is when the Lord was like, you need to find some stuff on raw food. I'm like, raw? Why? What do you mean? No. Oh, everything's so pretty. It's so pretty. I don't want to touch it because it looks so beautiful. It looks like art. I don't want to touch it because you're going to, mess up the masterpiece. It's like you're going to be moving towards this way. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't know. But it just kept coming back up, coming back up. And so when I got into this, my business was originally Fit Black Vegan, and that was just to let people know that hey, you can be fit, you can still, because some people like to question our black card once we eat, once we change what we eat. I'm like, and you can be vegan and still be in great shape. But it was a move towards, he's like, hey, I want you to start eating more raw food. And so I would go like a week eating raw food. Then I would just go a couple days. Then last year I did a month on just fruit. I'm just like, okay, what are we doing now? And so a few months ago, it's like, just go ahead and change the name. I gave it to you 4 years ago. You already have the LLC. Let's go ahead and do it. I'm like, well, here we are. And here we are.
I see. So that's the evolution of Eden style eating and how you got into it. It's so interesting. You said no, but God said yes. He was like, no, this is the path for you. And it's interesting that you couldn't find vegetarian. Now that I think about it, I'm like, you might as well go all in, right? Because if you're doing it for health, then you realize that dairy in particular, it doesn't matter what fad diet that's out there, meat eaters and plant eaters alike, I think they all agree that dairy is like dangerous, for our hormonal system. It causes breakouts. It causes all sorts of like hormonal issues and things like this. So people, if they're health conscious, they pretty much have an agreement on the dairy. And then if you're animal activist person, then that's rape. That's like endorsing rape and and murder, because in order for to get the dairy from the cow, not only do you have to artificially inseminate this cow, but then they're taking away their calves, their kids from them and killing them early. So it makes sense. It totally makes sense, like the struggle that you've had because of the evolution that people are learning all these things and coming to terms with the diet for health needs and also the lifestyle around it. So on this journey that you went on, right, I heard a lot of resistance. Like, God is calling you to do this. You had all these health problems, and God is calling you to step into this new eating pattern. You mentioned even some cultural things, that peer pressure comes in. Where like, oh, you're not black if you eat this kind of way, which I've heard before doing food policy work in California, which is actually the genesis of the Raw Food Health Empowerment Summit. I was like, where do people get this idea from? That we don't eat our ancestral diet, which is plant-based,
Right.
Like for you had to go through a whole identity change. So what were some maybe old coping habits that maybe you had that you kind of had to let go on this journey, or maybe that you've seen other people that you've supported and helped where they're like struggling to let go of some of these old identity things that they're holding on to that's holding them back?
I think the one major thing is I had to be willing to rock the boat, and in some cases to just sink the boat, just just topple it over, and to being okay with being different and being able to really stand firm. And this is what this looks like. This is what my eating pattern looks like now. So you're welcome, and to really be and to really just be really unapologetic with that, because at times I think, especially with when it comes to social situations, family, friends, things that even relationship wise, we're like, well, what if we go to dinner? Okay, We can go to dinner. I'm going to look at, I'm going to look before I get there so I can know what I'm going to eat. So I'm not there trying to figure out and taking 20 minutes to, put that together. I'm going to order what I'm going to order. Well, you're here at a steakhouse and you're eating vegetables and broccoli. You could have did that at home. I could have, but you wanted me to come and join you for dinner. So I am here taking up space, enjoying other people, eating the exact same way, but also being okay with if people are maybe a little uncomfortable. Um, for instance, a friend of mine had asked me to come and meet him for lunch. I'm like, okay, where are we going? I'm like, it's a crab place. I'm like, okay, there's gonna be something on the menu. And as soon as I walked in, he's like, oh, the wellness, he said, the wellness experts here, I'm done. And he just stopped eating. What are you doing? Finish eating. He's like, I can't eat this in front of you. I was like, I'm not offended. This is you and your body. Like, I'm good. Are you saying you're not offending me at all? And we sat there for 2 hours and he popped up his food and it's like, I'm not hungry anymore. I'm like, well, I was just sitting here. Like, I didn't, mean to bring conviction, but I guess it's here now. So do whatever you want to do. Do whatever you want to do with that. And so it's very easy for people to kind of buckle in those situations because you don't want to feel awkward. You may be able to have to grow some thicker skin if people want to, pick at you and ask you questions and tease you. And it's like, well, it's fine. So, and sometimes you just have to, have a quick comeback. So someone's like, well, where do you get your protein? Where do you get your fiber? You're welcome. And so like, oh, you're right. I said, I said, did you drink any water today? I don't like water. So you're full of it and you're dehydrated. We don't have nothing to talk about. And so it's really being able to stand firm and to really know your why, but also know what drives you and what keeps you doing it.
Yeah. I love that. And what really stood out was like almost, people acting as if you're like a food police when literally you're just present, not saying anything, And I know for me personally, I really did not like the label of this, people making that assumption. I started to feel like bad, like, why are you looking at me like this? Is it something that I'm doing? But as you're sharing your story, I had an aha moment that, it's kind of like, since you brought up scripture at the top of it, I'm going to use this as an example. Mm-hmm. If you're in the presence of God, just think about like the New Testament, right? Or Jesus comes, he's walking around and, there's the story of the woman that just touches the hem of his garment and is changed, right? Mm-hmm. It's like when you are not even just vegan, but you're a clean eating vegan, you are like the 1% of the 3%, right? Because of the global population, the last stat I heard is that vegans make up 3% of the population globally. And you're not even just vegan, you're a clean eater. Because a lot of vegans, they're smoking, they're eating a lot of processed foods, right? They're not necessarily the poster children for health, right? But as a raw food eater, someone who's more into health and clean eating, you're like the 1% of that 3%. So you are like elite. You're basically a leader, a health leader amongst all of these people, regardless if you wanted to or not, right? Just the moment you stepped into this because God led you there, this is basically what you've been called into. So just even your presence makes a difference. Like you don't even have to open your mouth and say anything. It's just so powerful. I used to see it as like a negative, like, I am not harassing you. Why are you putting this on me? This is your problem. But now I see it's actually, we're being called to do this thing for whatever reason. For me, I was basically scared straight watching what my grandmother went through with type 2 diabetes. That's what put me on the path. You were spiritually called and had all of these health issues, right? Which was super scary. And so you were called, right? And whatever other people are doing, they're on their own health journey, and just us being present, being in our truth is making an impact. And I want to say that for the two people that are watching us live and all of you who are going to be watching the replay, just know that if you heed the call, right? It's important to heed the call. It's not going to be an easy journey for you, as you heard from Shalita's story, but it is worth it, and it is for a reason. It is on purpose. You are on task, on your mission, right? And you don't even have to actively, be doing anything like a business or, have a speech to be telling everybody. Just your presence, just you being a model of health is what's going to really make that impact for people.
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
Yeah, for you, Shalita, like, how can someone tell, like, if a coping habit is no longer helping them? I heard you talk a lot about setting those healthy boundaries, which is one thing I know many people struggle with a lot, especially women.
Hmm.
And all the people that I work with typically have metabolic dysfunction, are obese, they have 50 plus pounds to lose, and this is a major issue. So it's been years and a pileup of all this fat, of saying yes to everybody else except themselves. Is there any other like coping habits that you've noticed that people struggle with that maybe they should look out for?
One thing I would say is apologizing for actually doing something good for yourself. Just like oftentimes many new mothers would feel that quote unquote mom guilt for wanting to go out with their husband or go out with their friends or go take a nap and the baby crying. That mom guilt. I'm like, you need rest too. You need to take care of you too. And the thing is so many times people profit on us being unwell, on us not taking care of ourselves, on us not caring. So if we're not a priority to us, then it's hard for us to demand for other people to put us as a priority. Oh, you're not showing me that you love you, so why are you putting all this pressure on me? And being able to actually do that and to not apologize for it, to not have a long laundry list of reasons to try to explain why you need to take a break, why you decide today I'm not going to eat this, I'm going to choose this. I'm going to go take a walk today. Well, why are you doing that? Well, where are you going? Well, why? You're going outside more. You're going to the gym. What are you doing? Who is he? What's their name? It doesn't have to be for a person. It just has to be for a person. You're like, well, maybe I just want to feel better about me. Well, what brought this on? Does there have to be a long explanation? How about just you decide to do something better? Like my a couple months ago, our church was on a fast, and our apostle, she said, "You have the power to decide." I'm like, "Well, that's it. I mean, we're done here. Like, we're done." And just let people know you do have the power to make a decision, and it's okay to take better care of yourself without apologizing for it. But then also, one thing that I had to work through when I first started is not gaslighting yourself. And that's a coping mechanism that many people run to. It's like, well, maybe I'm not doing this right. Well, maybe I don't deserve to be healthy. Well, maybe, and you're just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You, you deserve to be able to get up out of the bed and not be in pain. You deserve to be able to take care of your children without feeling exhausted. You deserve to live into your 80s and 90s not on loads of medication. You deserve to have the energy to go out and actually enjoy life on purpose. Don't talk yourself out of knowing how much that yes, you're worthy of this. You deserve to have a good and healthy life. I mean, even if we just want to throw scripture at it, 3 John verse 1 and 2. Above all things, may you be in good health and prosper, even as your soul prospers. Prosperity is not just about money; it's your own actually well-being. And some people really have that old mindset of being so used to being unhealthy that being healthy can terrify them.
Wow. That's really interesting because I have never thought about that, but I see the manifestation of that in some people, especially like when it comes to family responsibility and specifically mothers struggle with this a lot, and I don't have any kids, so I can't really relate to that. But mothers struggle so much. Like, it's the easy thing for them to put other people above them, and like the to-do list gets so long and they are at the bottom of the to-do list, so they never cater to themselves. They're not getting the rest. They're not getting the proper nutrition, because the proper nutrition would mean meal prepping and planning. And that's like the mental capacity they don't have, because they've already given all that energy to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I really loved how you brought in scripture into this, right? So if you actually believe Christ's word, then know that this is what, he's calling you to do, is to actually take care of the one vessel you have to experience this life, which is a gift that he's given you. You only get the one.
Mm-hmm.
So in this, one of the things you're really highlighting here too is self-awareness, which means you have to actually pause from the busyness of life to pay attention to what these obstacles are that is coming in between you and getting to the goal you're looking to achieve, right? What are some steps that people can do to like replace some of these old coping habits with some new healthier ones to overcome these mental challenges?
I would say, for one, to look at what has worked for you. Some of those coping mechanisms may be actually trauma responses that don't work for you. And it's just something that you have kind of put on over time, like a garment, like part of your personality. Oh, I just respond this way. No, that's actually not the way you actually respond to things. You're responding out of a trauma response. You would act a completely different way, but this has been something that you have just kind of placed on you and kind of kept going. And some people just need to take the time to really look and see, like, okay, if this situation keeps coming up and if I keep responding this particular way, what does my outcome look like? And really taking self inventory on, when I respond this way, what outcomes am I getting? So if you're seeing that this is just not working, okay, well, let's try something else. And also, even just looking to in your age, because as you get older, your responses should change, your behavior should change. What worked for you in your 20s may not work for you in your 30s, may not work for you in your 40s. There should be some level of maturity of knowing, hey, I need to find out what coping mechanisms that I can actually use that are actually beneficial and are not harmful, that are not going to negatively impact my emotional well-being, my physical health, those around me. If you used to smoke and drink all the time and that landed you in a really unhealthy place all around, that's a coping mechanism that did not work for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be easy to go back to what is familiar. What is familiar is not beneficial to where you are now. And so really saying, okay, this is where I am now. Who is around me? Like a self check or a squad check. Who is around you? Like what circle? What are these people doing? Are they healthy people? Are they those, is it those who actually hold you accountability? Because one coping mechanism that many people do not utilize is accountability. To have those be like, hey, you were wrong. Hey, you might want to work on this. And being able to receive that as growth areas versus someone nitpicking at you. And to just really be able to see it from a holistic way. This person is trying to help me, not harm me. And so oftentimes when going back to previous coping mechanisms, it's oftentimes out of self-preservation or trying to keep yourself safe.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes that doesn't help, because those who you actually want to help you, you're pushing out. Oftentimes, those different patterns that that you need to actually implement, You're like, well, it's here. It's too much work. I'll just stay comfortable here and then whine and complain about where you are when you're like, just make the decision. Like, really to decide that you want to actually do better and for it. If you need to go and sit on someone's couch, go to therapy. I am all about both Jesus and therapy. Jesus and therapy. Read your Bible, go to church, serve all the wonderful things, but go and sit on someone's couch who is unbiased, who does not know you, and get all of it out to where you can kind of figure out how your improper, unhealthy coping mechanisms began and where they started from so that you can kind of unravel that ball of yarn. So you're like, okay, this is not, this started when I was 5, and you're doing the same thing when you were 5 as in you're 40. Let's figure this out so we can move forward and do better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent point. And that's one of the things that I learned in my years of coaching is that we're all big kids. I mean, like honestly, we're all like adults, but we still have like our child self in us that sometimes is taking the reins, when it really shouldn't. The mature self is like, so in neuroscience, I like to uh, talk about the different areas of the brain and the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of the brain, making conscious healthy choices, thinking through consequences, managing planning and forethought and all of this is like the mature, I call it like the mature brain, right? The mature self here. And then you have like the deep limbic system that is kind of where like your child self kind of lives, where it gets triggered, it gets hurt, it's interpreting certain things being said and getting stressed out, and like then all of a sudden you're running to like the cookies or the fried chicken or whatever, and that stuff isn't serving you. And instead of like maturely dealing with it from the prefrontal cortex, it's more of like the child in you. It's like, no, I need my blankie, this thing, and it's working against you. And it's like what I usually tell my clients is like, we need to harmonize your two selves, your mature self that understands how you need to operate to get to the health goal that you're looking to achieve, and the child self that is acting out because it never got soothed, before. And so now you're having to parent that child self yourself now, right? And in that parenting, you don't allow your children to have ice cream just because they wanna, or the candy just because they wanna, right? You as the adult, you're like, no, you have to have your greens and stuff because you understand it's the healthier choice. It's what's necessary for a growing body and a developing brain. But our bodies always need this because cells are dying off, new cells are coming online. If they don't have the proper nutrients, then you have dysfunction and dysbiosis in the body, right? So it's like a constant thing. It's you don't ever get to an end. It's a lifestyle, right? And that's what we're talking about here is that mindset piece. It gets you in the game to start, and it keeps you on the train running for the whole lifestyle. And you mentioned earlier too about like gaslighting yourself. I want to talk about self-compassion, right? Because sometimes we're feeding ourselves lies. I'm not the person that follows through. I'm not the person that exercises regularly, right? But obviously, if you need that to be healthy and you need that for longevity, you need to tell yourself a different message. So I would love for you to talk more to that, especially since you stay in the gym, you building muscle, like there's a lot of women struggling to maintain that consistency. What kind of self-compassion have you utilized? Maybe any tools or techniques that have kept you on the path? That would be helpful, I think, for folks.
I think for me is my mind is always kind of, I'm like, I am here, but I'm thinking about things days, months, and years down the line. So I have to kind of reel myself in. Hey, today is Friday. You're here. Stay here. Okay, stay here. I might have to do this. Have to do this. Hey, where? Oh, yes. Let's come back. Let's come back. And really trying to really focus on being okay. I'm doing this today, and really giving it my full attention, even though yes, there are other things that I have to do. But I'm like, I have to remind myself of Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. I'm just like, oh, yeah, tomorrow has, okay. Let's focus on right now. Let's just focus on right now. And I think self compassion is such a major discipline because what you say to yourself, you end up walking that thing out. And so some people are harder on themselves than Jesus. Let's just be honest. You're just like, dude, Jesus, he ain't even that hard on you. Why are you like this to you? I'm like, you can give yourself a compliment, fake it, say something. And I think that sometimes some people deal with struggling with self compassion because they may feel or it's arrogant to actually speak good things about themselves.
Hmm.
And with that, some people will depend on kind of those words of affirmation from other people. But I'm like, when's the last time you've affirmed yourself? When is the last time you gave yourself a compliment? You know what? I was tired, but I got 3 things out of my 5 things done today. I got it done. And to really focusing on celebrating the small victories. I mean, it can be, just be as simple as I wanted to go to the gym 5 days this week. I went 2 days. You lapped everyone else sitting on the couch for those 2 days. And to really be like, yeah, I did that. Okay. Well, next week I'll work on setting and giving yourself grace and compassion. If life starts life and you're like, you know what, today is not a good day, but I'm not going to give up on what I have put forth for myself. There are days when I'm like, I don't feel like going to no more gym. I don't want to be around a whole bunch of people. I'm gonna work out at home on YouTube and I'm done. And then there's other days I'm like, girl, get up and go to the gym. Get up, come on, put your shoes on. It's like you're already dressed, but I'm at home. Mind you, there's a gym in my apartment complex, and there's actually where I actually work out. I can actually walk to. It's like a half mile away. I'm like, hey, okay, let's go, let's go, let's go. To where sometimes you won't always be motivated, but that's where discipline kind of kicks in that overdrive. It's like, hey, you're going to take care of yourself today. You're going to do something good for yourself today. So it's like, even if someone is gardening or planting something, you need water, light, and sun, water, light, fertile soil. Water the garden that is you. Like, see something, put a seed in there. Okay, today I got this done. It's a good day. Today I got this done. It's a good day. And so being able to kind of water yourself and really being compassionate, really speaking life over yourself. I'm like, but it also starts, starts on, how do you see yourself? And some people really have that poor connection or a really critical spirit in regards to how they see themselves. They're like, well, I have this flaw. I didn't ask you that. Give yourself a compliment. Say something. Say something instead of really picking yourself apart and really just being able to celebrate, hey, I'm here today. I did something today that I didn't do yesterday. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And so one thing, be late. Kobe said, he's like, don't stop when you're tired. Stop when you're done.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep going. Just keep going, but don't allow the the comfortability of being complacent or being self-critical to kind of keep you in that prison to where you cut yourself away. I'm like, you deserve to come on out of there. Come on out. It's okay. It's all right. Let's come out. Let's do something different. And so one of the movies I've been fascinated with is Inside Out and Inside Out 2. And so I just find it,
Yes. Yes.
it's like, that is amazing. And so my son, who is on the autism spectrum, he loves it. Like he's fascinated. And so when he has a rough moment, I'm like, what emotion are we feeling? Okay, and why? Okay, what does this look like? And to really be able to walk him through navigating. Okay, I feel this. Okay, now I'm going to do this so I don't feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really being able to sit and like, I feel X, Y, and Z. Okay, what got you here? Okay, good. So what can you do to get yourself out of this funk? What's going to positively help you do something? For instance, if someone's like, I want to lose 20 pounds. I'm frustrated. It's not coming off fast enough. I'm like, okay, let's say you have an event or something coming up and you kind of want to get your body ready. I tell people all the time, I'm like, go buy a dress that you like that you know you can't fit. They're like, why? I said, buy the dress, put it on, get frustrated on it, and keep it to where you keep trying it on. Oh, okay, the zipper is going higher. Okay, now I can fit. No, okay, now I can fit this. To where when you get in it, that is like a goal for you. To where you worked hard to be able to actually do this, but to actually celebrate yourself along that journey, because I think compassion is something that we not only focus so much on giving to other people, but we have to be kind to ourselves because sometimes we are just critical and we don't need other people. Like we do a great job of just cutting ourselves down, but really being able to, to give yourself a compliment and just it may seem simple, but just waking up in the morning, it's gonna be a good day. I feel good today. I drank some water today. Like those small things, it kind of adds up. It's like, filling your own cup.
And I love that you mentioned Kobe, right? And brought in the mindset of a champion. Kobe didn't wake up like he wasn't born. He didn't come out the womb saying, the quote that you just shared, right? He didn't come out like that, but he had to reorient his mind in order to become one of the greatest, basketball players of our time, right? This is called stepping into that new identity, the mindset of a champion. And wherever it is that you are in your life, whatever it is you're looking to do, there's a way that you can reprogram your mind for that intention, right? So you could be your best self, whether it's the best grandma, the best mom, the best bodybuilder, the best coach, the best manager, whatever it is. And having that healthcare practice, and I personally like affirmations because the brain has a negativity bias, which has historically kept us safe, right? Affirmations allows us to kind of orient the mind to like modern day times. Okay, it's safe, right? It's safe. And not only is it safe, but we are capable of so much more than we are doing right now. And reminding yourself of that on a daily basis is so important. For me, I call it mental hygiene. I do my dental hygiene top of the morning and my mental hygiene top of the morning, right? Because I need that, especially as an entrepreneur, right? My energy and my intellect makes me money. Without that, I don't have anything, right? So I have to get my mindset all the way around together. And even if you're not an entrepreneur and you work for someone, the day is so much longer if you don't set your mind up positively, right? Because we're spending so much time at work. I mean, especially when you tack on like the commute times that some folks have, a lot of my clientele are in New York. It's like 45 to an hour commute one way to work. So you're factoring in like if you have an 8-hour job, that's 10 hours away from home, right? Lots of stress and all of that. You need to get your mind right, right? Because that's what's going to set you up for success for all the things you're looking to achieve. And I like that you mentioned something too about loving on yourself, because I recently even heard in some of the groups online around people like hating on their bodies, right? While they're on this journey of healthy eating and all this kind of stuff, they're hating on their bodies. And from my perspective, the body is not going to respond positively to hate, so you have to love on yourself through the whole journey. So I love that you also mention that. I mean, you mentioned too in your story that you were obese at one point, right? And lost the weight, and that took you some time. Like, how much time did it take you to get to a healthier weight?
It was it took a while. It was definitely, I had, a lot of up and down. Then I would stop and then I would stall and I would get so frustrated. And it was something I had to really commit mentally to it, because of what many people don't really think about when it comes to a physical transformation. They just think, oh, you lost 50 pounds. Cool, great. Like, no, honey, this is physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, relational. All the things go together because you're really having to just see yourself in a completely different light. And to when you look in the mirror, that you don't see the reflection of your old you. And
Mm.
so body dysmorphia was something that I had to navigate myself out of. I was like, no, no, that's not me anymore. And so I would have someone just sit there and stare at myself. I'm like, oh, okay, look again. Okay, got it. Okay. And to really give myself grace and to not really see myself as I was before, to where if I was to, you know, start my cycle and gain 5 pounds of water, oh my God, I'm just like, okay, whew, breathe. It is water retention. It's okay. And it was, I mean, I was literally freaked out. I'm just like, oh God, okay.
Yeah, and that's a lot of stress, right? And like I talk about all the time, if you are so stressed out on that level, now you have cortisol increasing, and when cortisol is surging, insulin is also surging. And so if you already are dealing with metabolic dysfunction, if you have 50 plus excess fat to lose, right? Most likely you have insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction, and you're not helping yourself by adding that additional psychological stress. So it's like part of that journey is really loving on yourself, and what manifests is the weight loss, because it doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be strenuous, right? It doesn't, obviously you're trying to get your mind on board with doing a new thing and being consistent with that, the healthy eating and all that. I tell people all the time, the mindset part is the toughest, longest journey. Like the food, we already know what to do. The exercise, the government has already told us what to do. It's not rocket science, but it's the mental shift, that identity shift. I mean, would you agree with that as someone who has gone through that whole battle?
Oh yes, absolutely. The mindset, the mindset was, poof, it was completely different. When I had my daughter in 2005, and so I gained 75 pounds with my pregnancy with her. So
Wow.
I took eating for two as a whole thing. So I was like, do it easy, do it easy, do it easy, do it easy. And I was just like, I gotta feed the baby, gotta feed the baby. And then she came early and she was like less than 5 pounds. So I'm like, fam, where was all that I ate? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're supposed to be this big, nice, little chunky baby. This is not what happened. This is not what happened at all. And I'm okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna try to get it off. It was completely depressing like this. I'd never been that size before. I was almost 300 pounds. I'm 5'5". So I'm just
Wow.
like, this is not healthy. This is not okay. I'm trying to do something. So I was trying to get the weight off, and then I got a little bit down. And then I got pregnant with my son, 45 pounds with my son. So I'm just like, oh, I'm like, I just want to get back in the hundreds again. To see a one on the scale would just be great. It would just be great. And then with him, after I had him, I had a really bad UTI, and they gave me antibiotics. I'm like, this is going to affect my milk supply. No, it dried up almost immediately, and I was devastated. I'm just like,
Wow.
what do I do now? What do I do now? And so with that, and then some birth control, I gained weight. Mind you, I'm pumping. So because he didn't have really great latch, so I'm pumping and pumping. I was a milking machine and was getting bigger. I'm like, how is this possible? What is happening? What is happening? This is insane. So I found, the whole keto train, 2014, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Lost the weight. I was like, yay, I look great. Oh my God, you look so good. Yeah, yada, yada, yada. And then I ended up having angina again in 2017. And I'm like, well, maybe all this high fat stuff is not working. And so I'm okay, let me try to do something else. And then it was just, I tried this, I tried that, because what I found as one who followed that low fat, high animal protein is that there's no exit plan. It's like the moment you eat a potato, it's like 40 pounds. I'm just like,
Mm.
is this I just wanted French fries. I just wanted French fries. All I wanted was a fried. I'm like, what happened? And it was like I was not ready. Like no one told me this was going to happen. But like, you have to stay on this for a lifetime. What if I want some oatmeal for breakfast one day? Like what?
Right.
What if I want something other than like berries? What if I don't want to eat pork rinds? It did not even come to mind what I was eating until I transitioned to this lifestyle. I'm like, that is so gross. I can't believe I ate that. Oh my God. because that was like your chips because you couldn't eat chips. So you ate pork rinds with, avocado and guacamole and salsa. Like, oh, I'm just like, yeah, this is so healthy. The Lord is kind. I died because I was just like, oh, Jesus, what am I doing to myself? What am I doing to myself? But I had to really navigate my body changes after that. And then after me coming off of the whole keto craze of me picking up more weight, and then it was just my body completely changed again. And so I had to really almost in some way kind of start over fitness wise, eating a plant based diet. And I'm like, how am I going to do this as a vegan now? This is insane. And so you don't hardly really hear the opposite of people going from keto to vegan. It's awesome time. Being like, no, I'm not doing that. So I'm going to end up having to do a live or something regarding that. Because I'm like, yeah, it's always the opposite. It's not always as great as it was. And it took years. So it has really been an up and down journey for probably the past 13 years or so.
13.
And so I'm still learning. Yeah. So I'm still learning my body and learning what it likes. And now, I've been eating exclusively raw for the past week. And so I'm just like, okay, this is good. I'm like, okay. So I'm just kind of watching how my body responds, though I have been pretty much high raw since I started my vegan journey in 2019. But it's still, even that is a different mindset shift also, what that looks like. And so you are consistently having to adapt. I'm like, we thank God for neuroplasticity, being able to develop into new neurons. I need help with this. Great. And to really be able to really adapt to those different changes, because it can take time, and really having to mentally be okay with where you are, and to be okay with your journey may not look like someone else's.
Yeah. And it's going to take as long as it takes. Like you said, it's a learning of your body and the body adjusting to all the things that it's gone through. You talk about trauma. I mean, one of the biggest energetic demands that a woman's body can go through is birth, like labor, child labor, So you birthed 2 kids, and then you were dealing with obesity and all of these health issues. That's a lot that your body went through. And so having grace for the body, like, thank you, body, for holding me for this whole time. You haven't given up on me yet. We're still here in the fight together, Speaking words of affirmation and love and gratitude for the body, which is a self-healing supercomputer, self-preserving, right? It's highly intelligent. Science hasn't even caught up to how the body is able to handle as much as we put on it, with the toxic load and all of the stuff that we're doing with microplastics and all these other chemicals that are in our environment, the processed foods and all the trash that we put into it. The fact that, the workforce keeps a lot of people very sedentary, which the body is not meant to be sedentary. This is what messes with our mental health. We're dealing with a mental health crisis going on in the country. I would say globally, especially since the pandemic, but definitely in the country right now, So just words of affirmation, like, thank you so much, body. You really have been holding it down. I know we haven't been doing the best to support you, but we're going to make it better, to keep yourself encouraged, keep the cells. Like, I know, like, for example, my mom is a green thumb, right? She can make any plant grow. And I struggled for a long time because I'm definitely not a green thumb. Like, plants look at me and then they die for some reason, right? So I was like, man, how can I be more like my mom and have these plants grow? And what worked for me, at least in Chicago, because this was around the time that I was trying to do this, I got a little money tree and a mother-in-law tongue and like a palm. I can't remember what the exact type of plant it was, but it was some kind of palm. And what I did was I sang to it. I had crystals. I had essential oils. I created such a harmonious, nurturing environment. And I really spoke love into these plants, and they responded to it. They grew and flourished. And I was so shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, this woo stuff actually works. But it makes sense. Like yesterday's woo is today's science, because if water responds to some of these things, as we know, like they've done studies on if you play classical music, how that changes the structure of the water, how it affects our brain and studying and stuff like this. And where our brain is mostly water. Our body is mostly water. So all that stuff is, that positive energy is almost communicating with the structure of the water. But the point that I'm making here is it worked for the plant. Me pouring positive energy into these plants, it worked for them to grow. The same thing happens with our bodies and the cells of our bodies. It responds to that positivity. And on a hormonal level, obviously you're having effects because negative thoughts are affecting the hormones in a negative fashion, right? Which can keep fat on because it's creating chronic stress in the body. And the opposite is also true. You can induce a relaxation response with positive thought patterns and stuff. So Shalita, thank you so much for sharing your story. First of all, that whole journey that you went through, I love that you shared that. To let folks know, even though you may have found keto first, that's not the end, right? Like Shalita said, you need an exit strategy, right? Because I talked to one guy who was doing keto, and he was just like, because he was laughing at me, raw food, ha 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 ha. I'm doing keto and it's working for me. And I'm like, well, do you ever want to have a fruit again? And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna have fruit. So I'm like, well, how are you gonna do that? Because I know if you're like doing keto, you can't handle even a bite of fruit because all of a sudden now, your blood sugar is crazy and it can't handle it, right? So, but he got a little nervous around that question and stuff. But you have examples out here. So if you have gone through the whole keto thing and are looking to get into a healthier eating pattern for longevity, right? Because there are many roads to fat loss, but there's only really one area that we need to be eating if we want longevity, and that's eating foods that have low amounts of advanced glycation end products, right? So you were talking about the plant food kingdom, fiber-rich food. You have examples like Shalita, who has gone through it, has been through it, and she offers coaching, right? Shalita, you do coaching, consultations, you have a meal prep company, so she'll make your food and deliver it to you, right? You don't even have to get in the kitchen, right? So tell us a little bit about what you got going on and what people can expect from you and your company.
Well, definitely going to be doing some rebranding and some shifting here soon. Definitely really focusing a lot more on the coaching side and the nutritional therapy side because I'm one that I want to know, okay, you need help with, your weight loss journey, but what got you here? Like let's have a conversation. Let's talk. Let's unravel some things because a lot of things are tied to what makes us choose a certain food. What are you feeding when you're eating? I ask people that all the time. So when you eat that, what are you feeding? I'm hungry. I don't know. That's not what I asked you. What are you feeding? Because you're feeding something when you go for chips and cake and all the different things. I'm like, you want that dopamine hit. You want that hit. Okay, now after that, that issue is still there. So what does that look like, and how our relationship with food is conspired, how that looks, and what do we see food as? Because when I was an obese individual, food is my friend. Food was my friend. It doesn't talk bad to me. It's my yes man. Here, you can have as much as you want. But then I'm like, well, why didn't no one's going to go back to a bag of chips or something like that and say, it's your fault that you didn't tell me to stop eating you. And now I have X, Y, Z health condition. You're like, dude, that's a bad friend. You know what I mean? Your friend is terrible. You might need to do something and rectify that relationship. Right. But sometimes, we have to kind of really look into what that looks like. So I am based in Houston, but I deliver juices and meals to those who are in Houston and in San Antonio. So I'm actually
H-Town. So if Beyonce's listening, hit up Shalita.
You ain't got to cook. I'll bring it to your door. And so, because it's just, and I work around those who have different allergies, food aversion. So I ask them, I'm like, what do you not like? I have had some clients where I'm just like, you have a 50 list item of what you do not like and what you won't eat. I'm like, how am I supposed to feed you? I'm like, this is vegan, right?
So you're
it's
on the
vegan.
ice cube diet, basically.
Right. I'm like, I'm like, maybe you see the fast. I don't know because this ain't gonna work. Like, what do I do? So, but yes, so definitely there, and then here, and then working on some different things in regards to coaching athletes who want to compete.
Mm.
And
Compete
'cause
in
I will
what?
be
Bodybuilding? Or
compete in bodybuilding.
ah,
Yeah, so
okay.
yes, because I will be competing again next year. I haven't picked a show yet, but it's probably around April or May. We'll see which one. So, and then I'm looking forward to competing completely raw. So that is going to be the fun part for me, is to see the difference in how my physique is as a raw vegan bodybuilder versus when I was eating vegan when I competed 2 years ago.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, how much do you lift?
It really depends. It really depends. Like, I'm really not one who's like, okay, I'm trying to lift 5'4". So I don't really lift for. I don't really do like the kind of power lifting. More so, it's more so aesthetic wise to kind of shape the body.
Okay.
But I have been I have been kind of looking at CrossFit. I was like, oh Lord, I don't know, maybe I don't know. So
So
we'll
when you're
see.
doing upper body, like how much weight are you typically working with? I'm just curious. I guess I want to gauge how weak am I?
Um, as far as, so if I'm like on a machine wise, like doing like a lat pull down or something, like for my back, I'm probably doing between like 80 and 90 pounds, and I
Wow.
can do a lot heavier than that. But something, I'm just like, okay, just kind of getting myself. I'm like, okay, let's see where I am. I actually, my favorite parts to actually train are back and legs. I like shoulders too, but shoulders hurt for days because it connects to
Mm-hmm.
everything. And I'm like, dude, I can't lift my arms. I can't put on a shirt. Like, this sucks so bad. But I look great in the tank top when it's tank top season. So it's just really having to kind of,
Yeah. How
yeah,
bad do you want it? That's the question.
absolutely, yeah.
So great. So we have in the description to this video where you can find Shalita, eatingstyleeating.com, her website, her Facebook, Instagram, her email. So you can hit her up. You also have a course dropping right at the end of this year,
Yes, at the
top
end
of
of
the year.
yeah, I'm working on a course in regards to transitioning, but also transitioning to a raw centered eating style, but also in regards to how that has a biblical context with it also.
Nice. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for those of you who have been joining us live. I'd love to see you in the chat. Just say hey as we're wrapping up. Thank you for joining us. And for those of you who are going to be watching the replay, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I would love to hear or see your comments below this video to just one big takeaway that you got from today's session as we talked about the identity shift, basically moving away from who you used to program your head to be, right? Like who you saw yourself as, to really step into this new identity as a health leader for yourself, for your family, for your community. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and until next time, take care.